Let me ask you something a bit uncomfortable yet intriguing. Have you ever wondered why certain individuals trigger an almost obsessive attraction without even trying? They're not necessarily the most attractive, charismatic, or even socially skilled. Still, there's a mysterious, darker presence about them, something magnetic, powerful, and inexplicable that makes them irresistible. You've seen it, haven't you? Perhaps secretly, deep down, you've even envied it. What if I told you that there's a hidden psychological pathway, a darker, deeper, and more controversial method that you can use to trigger instant attraction in practically anyone you desire? This isn't your standard dating advice. We're stepping far beyond ordinary tips and into territory that most seduction experts hesitate to share publicly. I'm referring to proven yet controversial strategies deeply rooted in human psychology, the kinds of methods briefly hinted at by legendary seduction authors like Robert Greene in The Art of Seduction or Neil Strauss in The Game. But even these masters tend to avoid going into full detail, perhaps afraid of revealing too much of the dark side. Today, you're going to discover exactly what they held back. Throughout this video, I'll guide you down a rarely explored path, one darker, more intense, and vastly more effective. You'll come face to face with the shadowy psychology of attraction, uncovering exactly why the forbidden, the uncomfortable, and even the slightly painful is often more seductive than charm, kindness, or compliments ever could be. We'll explore concepts such as emotional deprivation, psychological inversion, and Greene's powerful, yet rarely fully explained tactic he calls the coquetry of pain and absence, all techniques capable of creating irresistible intrigue and desire. These strategies don't simply attract, they provoke deep obsessive fascination. But here's my warning before we dive deeper. These are psychological weapons. They're immensely powerful, tapping directly into the primal subconscious mind of anyone you interact with. Use them responsibly, ethically, and with full awareness of the potential consequences. Not everyone is prepared to handle such influence, so consider carefully if you are ready to wield it. I must warn you, the information you're about to uncover isn't comfortable, conventional, or gentle, but I guarantee one thing: you won't be able to look away. So, are you ready to discover the darkest way to trigger instant attraction in anyone? If you're prepared to embrace this powerful and controversial knowledge, then stay with me, because once you learn this, your perspective on attraction, seduction, and relationships will never be the same again. Let's begin now. Let's start by exploring something crucial, yet rarely discussed in mainstream seduction methods: the magnetic power of controlled uncertainty. According to Dr. Robert Cialdini, author of the acclaimed book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, human beings have a powerful craving for what they cannot fully understand or control. The less predictable your intentions are perceived to be, the more mental energy someone invests trying to decipher them. It's precisely this investment of psychological energy that sparks a form of addictive attraction. Think about it. Why do we obsess over unsolved mysteries, cliffhanger endings, or unresolved tension in movies or books? It's precisely because our minds despise loose ends. We desperately seek closure, answers, certainty. And when applied to interpersonal attraction, this craving becomes the core driver behind obsessive desire. In seduction, the power lies not in being easily accessible, but in strategic withdrawal, something often cited by classical seducers such as Giacomo Casanova, who famously knew when to remove his attention precisely at the moment his lovers felt most confident in his affection. By pulling away just as they felt secure, he amplified their longing and ignited powerful attraction. Casanova mastered the psychological principle that when something is scarce, its perceived value increases exponentially. Now consider this carefully. Imagine someone you've recently met who appears warm, attentive, and clearly interested in you. Suddenly, and without explanation, their communication cools slightly, not enough to seem rude or uninterested, but enough to leave you wondering. What happens next? Almost immediately, your thoughts become occupied with questions about their intentions, feelings, and thoughts about you. This effect is amplified by another profound psychological tactic: the strategic use of mixed signals, often referred to by contemporary seduction expert Mark Manson in his early work, and extensively analyzed by Greene. By occasionally contradicting your expressed interest through subtle gestures, an unexpected moment of distance, a silence slightly longer than comfortable, a mysterious hint of ambiguity. You trigger cognitive dissonance in the other person's mind. This psychological discomfort isn't negative, rather it's essential for sparking powerful attraction. Your target subconsciously seeks consistency and begins investing more deeply, emotionally and cognitively to resolve this internal conflict. Ironically, the harder their mind works to solve your mysterious behavior, the stronger their attraction grows, amplifying their desire for you. But let's go even deeper into this psychological rabbit hole. The principle of emotional contrasts, sometimes referred to in psychological research as the push-pull technique. Imagine that one moment you're openly engaging, creating moments of intimacy, then subtly pulling back, creating a vacuum of emotional uncertainty. Neil Strauss highlighted this extensively in The Game, describing how these emotional swings stimulate emotional adrenaline, making interactions uniquely memorable and addictive. Here's a practical example to illustrate clearly. You spend an evening deeply connecting with someone, making them feel understood, admired, and valued. You demonstrate sincere interest, listen actively, and perhaps even suggest future plans. They feel validated and secure. Then suddenly, the next time you meet, you slightly reduce your warmth, just enough to shift their internal balance and provoke the question, did I imagine our connection? Did something change? It's precisely this question, this internal uncertainty, that compels them to invest more energy into you. They become more observant, sensitive to your moods, and focused entirely on deciphering your true feelings. Thus, the attraction is no longer merely physical or superficial. It becomes psychologically profound and intensely captivating. Understand clearly, these tactics aren't about manipulation or deception. Rather, they tap into deep evolutionary psychology. From an evolutionary perspective, uncertainty is associated with excitement, challenge, and ultimately higher value. Our minds subconsciously equate emotional investment and effort with attraction, value, and desire. When someone makes us work for clarity, our subconscious perceives them as uniquely valuable. Moving further into psychological darkness, consider another method deeply rooted in human nature: the concept of strategic jealousy, carefully explained by psychologist and author David Buss in his influential work, The Evolution of Desire. Buss argues that when executed subtly and responsibly, jealousy can significantly amplify someone's perceived value. You don't need to openly flirt or show interest in others to trigger jealousy. Merely being seen as desirable by others, even subtly, dramatically, boosts your perceived worth. Think about social proof, the well-known psychological effect in which we unconsciously attribute higher value to what others find attractive. If others subtly demonstrate interest in you, even through innocent interactions, your perceived attractiveness skyrockets. Thus, positioning yourself in social scenarios where others validate your desirability indirectly enhances attraction in the eyes of your primary target. But the darkest, and perhaps most effective layer of this strategy is achieved when you combine emotional uncertainty with the subtle demonstration of desirability. This powerful combination creates a storm of internal conflict and intense attraction. The other person experiences the push of emotional uncertainty coupled with the pull of undeniable social validation, resulting in obsessive attraction. Consider it clearly. Have you ever found yourself obsessively attracted to someone who didn't explicitly show romantic interest, yet seemed universally admired and desired by others around them? This wasn't accidental. They unknowingly or deliberately leveraged psychological principles deeply embedded in human attraction: uncertainty, scarcity, social proof, and emotional contrast, to become incredibly magnetic. As you can see, we're dealing with profound emotional mechanisms deeply rooted in human psychology, and potentially controversial precisely because they're incredibly effective. Yet again, I remind you, this knowledge demands responsibility. You're tapping directly into subconscious triggers that most people remain unaware of, but which govern attraction profoundly. This brings us closer to the dark heart of seduction, where attraction stops being an uncertain art and becomes an exact science. But there's still more depth to uncover. Let's keep exploring. Now that we've uncovered the psychological forces of uncertainty, emotional contrast, and strategic social proof, let's descend even deeper into one of the most misunderstood, yet devastatingly powerful tools in dark attraction: emotional imprinting. Emotional imprinting is not about words. It's about moments, raw, vivid, emotionally charged experiences that get etched into someone's memory in a way they can't fully understand or forget. These moments don't have to be grand or dramatic. In fact, they're most effective when subtle, intimate, and unexpected. Here's what makes this so powerful. The human brain doesn't fall in love through logic or checklists. It attaches through emotionally intense moments. These are snapshots, flashes of connection, or even tension that become anchors. And if you can be the source of that emotional intensity, whether it's joy, jealousy, mystery, confusion, or even slight frustration, your presence will haunt their thoughts long after you're gone. This is why people become addicted to relationships that are emotionally unpredictable. The brain literally releases dopamine during emotional highs and cortisol during lows, creating a cycle of anticipation, reward, and withdrawal. In other words, the attraction becomes biochemical. Now let's combine this with another layer, controlled vulnerability. Not the kind of open-book vulnerability you see in self-help books, but a colder, more calculated version. You don't reveal your whole story. You drop fragments, pain, ambition, failure, like breadcrumbs, creating a mystique of depth while never giving full access. This triggers what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the mind to fixate on incomplete information. When someone feels there's more to you than meets the eye, but can't quite access it, they don't just feel intrigued. They need to figure you out. And here's the dark twist. They begin projecting their fantasies onto you. They fill in the blanks with their own desires. They turn you into a character in their internal story, which makes their emotional connection to you exponentially stronger. Because now, it's not even about who you are. It's about who they imagine you to be. This is where we enter the territory of psychological seduction, where your presence alone becomes a trigger. You become a mirror for the other person's unresolved emotions, fantasies, fears, and longings. And once you hold that position in their mind, attraction becomes almost irreversible. Let's take it further. Another advanced tactic is the deliberate creation of tension without immediate release. Modern society is built on instant gratification, and most people expect things to happen quickly, especially in dating and attraction. But true seduction delays gratification. It stretches the tension, prolongs the suspense, and plays with expectation. Think of a classic film noir seductress. She never gives the full smile. She never gives a straight answer. Her power lies in her unpredictability, her slowness, her mastery of silence and implication. Every word she speaks feels like it's hiding another. Every look seems calculated, but you're not sure why. This same energy can be used deliberately. Speak less. Let pauses linger. Let your gaze hold just a second longer than expected. Let your responses be slightly vague, just elusive enough to provoke curiosity. Most people are used to transparency. But mystery? Mystery compels. Mystery is oxygen to attraction. And the more someone tries to decode you, the deeper they fall. Now let's address another unspoken element of dark seduction, the removal of neediness, not just behaviorally but energetically. You see, people can feel when you want something from them, especially when it's validation, attention, or approval. That energetic neediness kills attraction instantly. It says, you have power over me, I need you to complete me. That's not attractive. It's repelling. But what happens when someone realizes you're not seeking anything from them, not even their affection? When they sense you're whole, complete, and unbothered by their acceptance or rejection, they become obsessed with gaining your approval. This isn't just about acting confident, it's about living from a place of internal abundance, where you know your worth not because you're arrogant, but because you've experienced solitude, self-discipline, and emotional mastery. You faced rejection, loss, and pain, and now you are unmoved by the superficial games most people play. This kind of presence, grounded, sovereign, imperturbable, is intoxicating. People chase what doesn't chase them. People crave what doesn't crave them. And when you radiate that inner composure, you enter the rare space of being seen as the prize, not because you say you are, but because others feel it. Let's go deeper still. Another tool often misunderstood, but brutally effective, is selective empathy. You don't have to be cold. In fact, moments of unexpected warmth, when delivered strategically, can be 10 times more impactful. Imagine being mostly mysterious, self-contained, unreadable, and then in one rare moment showing deep understanding or gentle attention. This sudden contrast hits the nervous system like a lightning strike. It creates an emotional high. The person begins associating you not only with mystery, but with rare emotional depth. You become the one who could be cold but chooses not to be, making your warmth more meaningful, more addictive. This is not manipulation. This is mastery of timing. You're learning how to present your presence as a journey, not a transaction. You're no longer offering predictable attention or easy affection. You're offering transformation, challenge, emotional texture. You're offering what few people dare to give, an experience that leaves a permanent mark. And that, more than looks, more than charm, more than anything else, is what creates unforgettable attraction. Stay with me. We're just beginning to unlock the layers. There's a reason this is called the darkest way to trigger instant attraction, because the tools we're about to explore next go even deeper, into silence, into detachment, into the psychological triggers that turn desire into obsession. Now that we've uncovered the role of tension, mystery, emotional imprinting, and selective empathy, let's shift into a more primal layer of dark attraction, the manipulation of time and perception. One of the most overlooked psychological triggers in attraction is temporal distortion. When you learn how to affect someone's sense of time, how long they feel like they've known you, how slowly or quickly moments with you seem to pass, you gain a subtle but massive power. People don't fall for you over years. People fall for you over moments that feel like years. Here's how this works. The human brain doesn't measure time in hours or days. It measures time emotionally. A 5-minute conversation that activates deep emotion can feel more significant than a year-long friendship. This is why, when someone walks away from an interaction with you, feeling like they've just experienced something intense, surreal, and emotionally layered, you become someone they remember, not logically, viscerally. To do this, you slow things down when others rush. You hold eye contact a little longer. You don't fill every silence. You speak as if time is irrelevant. This not only alters the pace of the interaction, it also signals total confidence. And confidence that doesn't seek attention is rare. Dangerously rare. Let's dig deeper into something even more advanced: identity projection. This is the art of becoming a mirror that reflects back someone's idealized self. Not by faking it, not by changing who you are, but by understanding what someone wants to be, and subtly positioning yourself as the person who sees that version of them. Most people are never truly seen for who they wish they could become. They are judged, categorized, or placed into roles. But if you can become the one person who looks at them and through your gaze, your words, your silence communicates, "I see the depth in you, I see the darkness, the ambition, the hidden hunger, and I'm not afraid of it," you create a psychological bond far deeper than attraction. You become, in their mind, a key to unlocking a more powerful version of themselves. That's when you stop being a person in their eyes. You become a symbol, and symbols are unforgettable. This takes us into what I call psychological archetyping. Jung spoke about this, the idea that we each carry unconscious archetypes: the hero, the lover, the rebel, the shadow. When you identify someone's dominant archetype and engage with it directly, not by analyzing but by feeling it, you bypass surface-level interaction and start speaking to their inner mythology. For example, if you sense someone sees themselves as the misunderstood genius, you don't flatter them. You engage them with complex questions, provoke them intellectually, and withdraw just enough to leave them wanting your validation. That's how you speak to their core. You're not just flirting anymore. You're triggering a subconscious identity loop. This method is especially potent when paired with emotional asymmetry. Most people approach attraction with balance. If one person shows interest, the other reciprocates. But dark attraction thrives in imbalance. When your attention is inconsistent, not out of manipulation but out of self-containment, you create a dynamic where your energy becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is addictive. Emotional asymmetry means they feel more about you than you reveal about them. They feel exposed while you remain composed. They seek answers while you remain comfortably unreadable. You are the center of an emotional orbit they can't quite escape. Now let's talk about symbolic cues, an often forgotten but potent layer of dark seduction. This involves the use of metaphors, imagery, and indirect language to create a world around your interactions. Instead of saying, "I like you," you might say, "Some people walk into your life like a soft wind. You almost don't notice them, but you feel them long after they're gone." Suddenly, you're not just flirting, you're creating atmosphere. Symbolic language activates the right hemisphere of the brain, the emotional, imaginative side. It makes the interaction feel cinematic, poetic, even surreal. That's what creates long-term imprinting. You don't just touch their heart, you touch their dreams, their subconscious. Even your silence becomes part of the narrative. And that brings us to a darker, colder, yet fascinating concept: the weaponization of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean being cold, it means being centered. You are not reactive, you don't chase, you don't apologize for who you are. You don't rush to fill the void when things feel uncertain. You let the other person feel the silence, feel the absence, feel your withdrawal. That's when the psychological echo starts to grow in their mind. This is one of the most powerful truths about dark attraction. People don't crave your presence as much as they crave relief from your absence. But that only works when your presence had weight, when you've created moments charged with emotional resonance. Then, when you pull away, the emotional withdrawal begins. They replay the last words. They analyze your last look. They start imagining. And when imagination takes over, logic disappears. Now, they're not just thinking about you, they're haunted by you. This is the difference between being liked and being desired. And desire, when it comes from the subconscious, is nearly impossible to resist. So you see, the darkest path to instant attraction isn't about lines or tricks. It's about becoming the kind of presence that people don't understand, but can't forget. It's about stepping into the shadow side of human nature, not to manipulate, but to understand what truly drives desire, and to embody a kind of emotional depth, power, and mystery that most people never encounter in a lifetime. We've only begun to unearth what lies within this deeper realm of seduction. In the next part, we'll break open one of the most controversial and hidden layers of all, the emotional anchor trap, and how certain phrases and behaviors can embed themselves like psychological viruses in someone's memory, permanently altering how they feel about you. So now, you understand. Attraction doesn't begin with compliments. It doesn't start with being nice. And it sure as hell doesn't live in predictable behavior or surface-level validation. It begins in the mind. It grows in mystery, and it thrives in emotional contradiction, silence, subtle danger, and presence. The darkest way to trigger instant attraction isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about amplifying the version of you that already exists in the shadows. That part of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't seek approval. The part that knows how to provoke desire not through force, but through silence, space, and depth. It's about understanding that attraction is a psychological war, fought with tension, unpredictability, selective exposure, and most of all, restraint. Because here's the truth no one tells you. The person who controls less is the one who chases more. And the one who leaves the deeper emotional imprint always wins. If what I've shared with you here resonated, if a part of you felt something awaken, like you just accessed a code most people don't even know exists, then listen carefully. This is just the beginning. If you want to keep diving into these layers, where psychology, seduction, and self-mastery collide, then you know what to do. Scroll down. Leave your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Was this eye-opening? Did it challenge your perspective? What part hit you hardest? And if you feel this message could impact someone else, someone who's tired of playing by the rules and ready to understand what truly moves people at their core, share this video. Copy the link. Send it to that one friend who always overthinks everything. Let's shake up the surface-level game they've been stuck in. Hit that like button if this gave you value. Subscribe if you're ready to go even deeper. Because what's coming next? We're not pulling punches. We're going darker, sharper, smarter. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. You've just unlocked a part of the game most people never even realize exists. Now the real question is, what are you going to do with that power? Let's keep this conversation alive. I'll see you in the comments. Stay sharp.